We are Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Hey, welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. We're going to start in a few minutes, but I want to tell you to hit up our social sites, retweet, share, comment, like, do all of that stuff. It can only help us out and it'll make the show even better. But we're getting ready to give you a lot of good Ole Miss information, and I just thought I would tell you that because the POMcast is starting. Well, it's starting right now. Wait, no, that's a little early. It is starting right about now. All right, good morning. It's a Thursday. I hope everybody's having a great day. Welcome to the POMcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis, and we're going to talk a little bit about stuff. I want to tell you before we get started, though, about TakeItToTheGrove.com and Travel and Cruise World and La Terrain Watches. Normally we have those set up. There we go. Travel and Cruise World, 1-800-330-7461. What I was trying to do with this advertiser is to find a guy that can be the boots on the ground down here in Central Florida. Everybody needs a vacation. We're 18 months into this at this point. Everybody needs to get away. Florida's open, and these guys know all the rules, where mask is going to be required, where mask is not going to be required for the beaches, for the parks. Disney and Universal is a little different. There's no citywide mandate at the moment, but there's different businesses can do different things, and these guys can help you, basically. And the best part is that you can book the deal through them for the same price that you can on the website. The parks pay these guys. The parks pay them. And with the parks paying them, you can have that resource on the ground. So that is travelandcruiseworld.com, 1-800-330-7461. See Central Florida like a local. Travelandcruiseworld.com. Also want to tell you about Take It to the Grove. That is www.bookatailgate.com. They are a tailgating company that are flexible enough to handle random tailgate things where you rent everything, where you have the gear and you can book for the whole season. You want a TV, you want it catered, they can go pick that up as well. So give them a call at www.bookatailgate.com. You won't regret it. It's a pretty cool thing. It's an Ole Miss vendor approved. And also, welcome to the show, La Terrain Watches, the official watch of Positively Ole Miss. Go online, find your watch, whatever you're doing. Just enter the promo code POMcast when you check out. And you can enjoy all the savings and everything that goes along with it with La Terrain Watches, the official watch of Positively Ole Miss. That's a lot. So, if you want to watch the show, you can catch us on Twitter at @TheStephenWillis or at Ole Positively. You can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast. You can catch us on YouTube at Positively Ole Miss. Subscribe, hit the bell. You'll not only know that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. Hey guys, how are y'all doing? I'm glad y'all are enjoying the show. And you can catch us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss. All one word, all lowercase. We're on AudioWise. We're on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. We're also on Apple Music or Amazon Music and Audible. So today's show, I want to talk about a little bit. We have an interview called Rebel Rewind that's going to air on Sunday for everybody. You can catch it on Patreon early now. And this week I interviewed Bill Flowers. And one of the things that was discussed in that interview was the way that Matt Corral looked against Louisville. We'll get into that. We also have the presser highlights. Looks a little bit weird because of Lane Kiffin's situation, but we have those presser highlights, about 4 minutes today. And we want to talk a little bit about what's going on in Rocky Top, because this is the biggest game in their season. And it will affect us since we play them in October. If they drop this game, it'll be a different team that we face in October than if they win this game. So just a heads up about that. So on Rebel Rewind, I interviewed Bill Flowers, and we talked about essentially the way that Matt Corral looked. And we're not talking about necessarily how he played or things like that. I think it was more intangibles and comfort level and obviously processing stuff and able to do things within the offense that is extremely advanced. Whenever he looked over to the slant, it wasn't there, and he brought it all the way back on the other side of the field and hit a comeback. That was a big-time throw. That was an NFL 1987 progression throw. So we were talking with Bill Flowers and everything, and it was brought up that he looked a lot like Eli. And like I said, it's not about how he played or what he was doing. It was just how the quarterback position, through all the operational stuff and the demeanor and all that thing, it left you with a sense of extreme confidence in the position behind center. And you see national media pundits who spent all off season trying to find a way to make Matt Corral not elite.
A heavy precipitation
Because they did that.
issued.
Yeah, we got some heavy precipitation warning. There you go. But they spent the whole offseason to try and justify the fact that they thought Matt Corral wasn't elite. All of a sudden, Matt Corral is popping up on Heisman list after week 1. And people are comparing him to Zach Wilson. I predicted this back in July and June, if you listen to the show at all. If you were around back then, I predicted all of this stuff. We all knew that Matt Corral was special. We knew he was a special player. Now, the degree of special that he was, we did not know. Because there's a difference between Chad Kelly and Eli Manning. I know there's a lot of people that's favorite player is Chad Kelly. He's a great quarterback at Ole Miss, but he wasn't Eli Manning. Eli Manning was potentially the GOAT at this school. He didn't have the players that Chad Kelly had. You put Eli Manning on that roster, that team wins the national championship. Period. But Chad Kelly was a great quarterback. So the levels of special come into play. And a lot of that is the demeanor. Hey, Chris, the tough test for Ole Miss, which 3 opponents will be the tough test for Ole Miss this season? We'll get back to Matt Corral in a second. I'll go ahead and answer this. I believe that the toughest games are going to be Alabama, Auburn, and Texas A&M. Those are going to be the 3, and everybody points to normally the Alabama and Texas A&M of being 1 and 2 in the West. And then, Steve, why did you add Auburn? Ole Miss has trouble at Auburn. There's some kind of weird voodoo history that turns out to be a tough game. When Ole Miss has a special season, they win over on the Plains. But when it's a normal season, they seem to find a way to drop that game. Like in 2019, there's just no offense in that game, the Rich Rod thing. But they had a chance to do it, but they didn't quite pull it out. So I think that game will be tougher than you think. Everybody sees the 60 burger that they put against Akron, and they're all freaked out about that. I don't think that Auburn is an offense that is a normal 60-point team. I think Akron is just really bad. But they are a decent team, and they will be fairly scary, especially at that point in the season as they grow under Brian Harsin. Also, Brian Harsin is replacing Gus Malzahn for the 2nd time in his career. That's a weird thing. So we're talking about Matt Corral. We're going back and about how he looked. And everybody, made comments back in the day about Eli Manning, about Easy Eli, and things like that. And the way, honestly, Guy, I think we absolutely boat race Liberty. Arkansas with that drop 8, I think Matt Corral and that defense, the chip that's on his shoulder about that specific game that he mentioned it at SEC Media Days, I'm worried less about Arkansas. But Guy says he thinks we struggle with Liberty, Bama, and Alabama. Or Arkansas. Alabama, obviously. If anything's out there, that's the special team. But we're going to take we're going to do the press conference highlights shortly. And we're going to come back, and then we'll talk about Rocky Top a little bit. I think it was 4 or 5 minutes. 4 or 5 minutes for for the presser highlight. So stick around after that. I'll be back after that, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about just around the SEC this weekend. All right, here it is.
All right, so unusual week, kind of having to put 3 days into one. We're only going to practice once this week, so that's highly unusual and quick turnaround with the morning format practice. So pretty challenging. Don't have practice update for you because I'm not out there. Practice is still going, so unusual not to be able to give you a whole lot of info on that, but good to play at home. Really hope our crowd comes out. Hope people don't, sit and say, well, we'll just wait for SEC games. Having a crowd is impactful to your players, to their performance. It's impactful to recruits when recruits come into the stadium. So really urge fans to come out. Excited for the first walk that we've had through the Grove. First time actually stepping foot in the Grove. So personally excited for that. But we need people to come out. And, everybody wants a top 25 program. Well, let's put an atmosphere like a top 25 program so players feel that and recruits see that as well.
I felt good going through everything that I had went through. My first year here, just felt like I accomplished a lot since getting to that point, and that interception just put it over the edge for me, made me realize I done got way mature and better as a player.
Just ready to go to war with a new team. I know they have my back, I had theirs, and yeah, excited playing this new league, blessed.
Well, I think the first time the Raiders part was extremely challenging because you have players that were older than you, when you're dealing with NFL. But in general, I think, relying on people that have done it before and have a good staff around you. And there's no recipe to create experience. And I've learned that that's life. That's coaching, parenting, whatever your job is, it takes experience to go through things and learn how you'll handle them. You can read, you can, kind of channel what you remember of people you worked with when things come up. That's helpful, but a lot of times you got to go through it and figure it out on your own. So I would say just really utilizing people's opinions and people that have done it before.
I would say my freshman year, I was very immature. I wasn't prepared for the college life and the things that I had to do. But I say the journey to JUCO, it helped me. Northeast helped me very much. The coaches and the players, and I was just around them. The atmosphere in Boonville just helped me a lot. So I was mainly by myself, so I wasn't at home. I was farther away from home. And it just helped me get mature, and now I'm back and better.
I feel like we was all prepared, but yeah, the first drive was a little long, but yeah, after that it was good.
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, it ain't like he got to start off with a chip shot. So, knew he was really talented, obviously, and so it was great to see him go in, perform like he did, and gave us more confidence as the game grew. So that's, you never know with true freshmen what's going to happen, regardless of how they practice. So probably him and Taishim were, the really bright spots of guys that went in and looked like they've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, it was definitely looking like that. Lane Kiffin, DeAndre Prince, and Orlando Amana in the press conference. By the way, Tim Nicely, we messed up a little bit last night. Jeb is traveling. He did a show on the road last night. Normally he's down here with me. And there was a little bit of technological glitches. This is not something that's going to be every day. We're still working to get a studio built down the road from me, and once that is up and running, that'll be pretty good. And Guy, just talking about the Liberty game, I think Ole Miss just has better players than Liberty. There's going to be able to line up and just kind of have the way. It's going to look a lot like that Louisville game if we do what we're supposed to do. Now, all of this is under the assumption that we play clean. Like I said before the Louisville game, if we play clean, it's a game that, I mean, we should beat Liberty by 2 or 3 touchdowns easily. And really the same goes with Arkansas. That I think a lot of people are going to make Liberty into something that game is not, because of Hugh Freeze. Malik Willis is a good quarterback, but after that, there's a significant drop-off in players. Now, they have transfers that come in and all of that stuff. So, as a Group of 5 team on the level of a Coastal Carolina, they are an excellent team. They really are. But that roster could not come in and compete in the SEC on a week-in, week-out basis. They're not built for that. And understanding that, now you understand that if you don't play clean and you don't do what you're supposed to do, a team can jump up and get you. But on an average game that's going on, a team cannot jump up and get you. I think for the Ole Miss fan base, and a lot of it is like almost battered women syndrome to an extent, but games like Memphis and games like Tulane, we have a history of dropping those games. The Vanderbilt game every now and then. It's a game that we should win. So in the fan base's mind, there's a little bit more doubt than should be there. They're not actually objectively looking at what's happening. And because of that, there's a little bit of fear that develops in the team. It was like not necessarily fear of the other team, but fear of what can happen. So because we've seen some bad things, 4th and 25, we all saw that. We all did that. But I think with this team, they have the mindset of their coach. They're not afraid of anybody. They don't play like they're afraid of anybody. That game was one of the most physical football games played by Ole Miss I have seen in my lifetime. That was a physically dominant team on the field against Louisville. Just was. Malik Cunningham was just lost. Now, a lot of that was that their service team, when they were preparing, they weren't prepared for that defense. Don't forget that surprise for that Iowa State John Haycock defense that was kind of run that we talked about earlier in the week. That was a little bit new for them. So they need to figure out a way to attack it. But that defense being there and kind of a bend but don't break and force the spread teams to go where you want them to go, it is a very interesting idea, especially in the Southeastern Conference. Lane Kiffin is an early adopter. I talked about this. I've talked about it for the last year at this point. But from the analytics to the offense, he's an early adopter. He's willing to do something early. And that is going to help a school like Ole Miss. Now, if this builds the way I think this is going to build, and understand if this happens the way I think it's going to go, Ole Miss better be ready to pony up. And not necessarily with money, with just the ability to say yes with what he wants. People, if he's calling people to go to the games, go to the game. Because we want as little issue to happen moving forward as possible. Everybody talks like it's a foregone conclusion that Lane Kiffin's going to leave. I do not believe that. I think too much has changed. He has a great situation. He's making over $5 million a year. I mean, it's in a good place. The only thing that can stop him is the amenities, like things like the fan base showing up to a game, and facilities, which we're about to have a capital campaign. So just get ready to say yes. That's all I'm saying right there. Just say yes, do your part, because it's not really going to be a money thing. I'm sure if it comes down to it and the season goes like we expect, there will be a raise waiting for him at the end of the season. But just be ready to say yes. When we come back, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we are going to talk about little games in the SEC that we're paying attention to. And what needs to happen and how that will affect Ole Miss down the road. That's kind of the idea of this show, because this show's the POMcast. This show's about Ole Miss. So how will the Tennessee-Pittsburgh game affect Ole Miss in mid-October? Anyway, stick around. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Stephen Willis, POMcast on this Thursday. This will be the last Thursday in a while that there's only one show on Thursday, because we have stuff on Friday, we have stuff on Saturday, we have stuff on Sunday. We're already every day. But it's getting to the point where there's a day show and there's a night show. Like during the week, there's going to be a POMcast at 10 Central. On Monday night, there's Beast of the East. On Tuesday is Best of the West. On Wednesday is SEC After Dark. On Thursday will be a new show that I haven't figured out exactly what to name. If you have any ideas in the chat, hit us up. We can see them. Hit us up. Let us know what's going on and what to name the show. And the show will be a game preview with Bill Flowers. Yes, congratulations on that one. Big get there. Bill Flowers will come on to talk about the game that just happened and the game that's going to happen. So he's going to give his thoughts on what's going on. He did that a little bit in Rebel Rewind that's going to air Sunday if you want to go back to the Louisville stuff. But the actual stuff for this will air next week. So Bill Flowers will be on the show and start doing a weekly hit talking about Ole Miss football. I got a question in the thread. As of today, what are the percentage chance of Arch Manning to sign with Ole Miss? Any factors? My opinion on this is his recruitment looks insanely like Eli's at this point. It's following the same path as Eli Manning's recruitment. And Ole Miss is going to be in it if you're doubting that Ole Miss is going to be in it. Now, media people need this not to be a foregone conclusion. So they're going to say that Texas is the leader, that Clemson's the leader, and all these teams are the leaders because they need that to happen. Because if this is a foregone conclusion, they don't get the clicks. Understand that. So I don't think anybody really knows who the exact leader is at this moment. I will say this. If Arch Manning watched that game Monday night and saw that offense and what was going on, I know who would be the leader for me. Absolutely. And also a Manning in a name, image, and likeness world. How much money would Eli have made at Ole Miss? How many car dealerships would just show up to hand him money? He'd make $1 million a year just on his name, not even counting how good he was. And Arch is absolutely fantastic, and so is Eli. I think there's national commercials that could be in his future. He could be a guy that no matter where he goes, ends up on the Fansville commercial. So I wouldn't stress out too much about Arch at this point. Ole Miss is doing what they need to do. They need to win games this year. If they go 8-4, 9-3, if Matt Corral's on that stage for the Heisman, because right now he's in the top 3, don't worry too much about Arch. Because that recruitment is happening, and they don't talk, and there's sources going through, and everybody worries. Everybody gossips about what's going on. Don't worry too much about Arch Manning at this point. Next spring we'll get into a little bit. I think he's going to commit somewhere around March or April. So they're building that. They're going to get him to Oxford. He's been to Oxford several times. He comes here on his spare time. So just, pump the brakes on that, because we don't need to put too much emphasis on Arch, because Luke Altmaier's here right now and deserves a little bit of respect. And Matt Corral is perhaps the second greatest quarterback in my lifetime, which goes back to 1976. I only put Eli ahead of him at this point. But Matt Corral needs to close the deal. It's a good team, physical team. I enjoy watching these games. But that was a good question, Chris. Now, Tennessee plays Pitt this weekend, and I am of the opinion this is the biggest game of the season for Tennessee. And let me explain why. There aren't really paths to a bowl game for them that don't involve them going 4-0 in the non-conference. If they win this game, they're probably going to go 4-0, because I think they have Tennessee Tech and another G5 team lower level. So this is a Power 5 game, big game. Pitt is kind of like the UCLA of the East Coast. There's a lot of super seniors and seniors, and fifth-year seniors, six-year super seniors, and all those guys playing defense. Now, it's a typical Big Ten type team. A typical Big Ten type team, which means they're a little bit slow. There's a little bit of plodding. I think Pickett's a pretty good quarterback. So they're a team that could get you. But it's also a game that Tennessee could win, if that makes sense. So this is one of those 50-50 type games. So, and the way this will play out is Tennessee has a depth problem. Anytime you're dealing with play volume, you got to figure out and set up the defensive side of the ball. We're going through the same thing here. And that involved recruiting, that involved a change in the scheme, all that here, but that was year 2 work. This is year 1. This is them seeing what they have in real life. And I think play volume could jump up and get them, because the way that Pittsburgh likes to play, if they hit 75 plays, 80 plays, even without going fast, that means the Tennessee offense didn't show very well. And that defense is really going to wear down. It could be something to where Tennessee is winning 31-24 in the third quarter and it ends up being a 48-38 game. That type of thing. If Tennessee wins the game, though, I think they jump on them early. They jump on them early and end up pulling out a 38-28 type game. And the point is, the reason I bring all that up is mid-October, Ole Miss goes to Neyland Stadium. If Tennessee loses that game to where they're in desperation mode trying to get to a bowl game, because they haven't hit the true desperation yet because there's still plenty of games left, but they know the math. Everybody knows the math. And if they drop that game, they've got the South Carolina game and they got the Vandy game and, even maybe Missouri. But there's certain games on their schedule that are viewed as not winnable. Whether they are or not, that's irrelevant. But there's games on their schedule like the Alabama game, the Georgia game. They have Alabama and Georgia in the same season. That's ridiculous. The Ole Miss game. There's certain games that are viewed as unwinnable. With our mindset, if we go in like we did against Louisville, just a completely physically dominant team that could not care less about what you have on your side of the ball. That's what I noticed in that game, is it didn't matter what was lining up on the other side. Absolutely. Ole Miss was just coming to do their thing. They were doing it more physical than you. They have a bunch of better athletes than you, and just try to keep up. We're going to do it faster than you. So that's something that stood out in that game. So, man, I'm really excited. Oh, goodness, look at the clock. Time flies when you are having fun. Absolutely. I want everybody to tune in as this goes on. Friday, Biscuits and SEC's SEC Week Preview. Saturday, Ole Miss's preview with Joe DeLeon talking Austin Peay. and Sunday Rebel Rewind with Bill Flowers. They're all available on Patreon right now for $3. If you dump $3, you can listen to it all. And we do all of that stuff as well. So we're moving to having a show twice a day, every day of the week. So every day there's a POMcast, and on Monday, Beast of the East, Tuesday, Best of the West, Wednesday, SEC After Dark, Thursday will be the Bill Flowers Show. Whatever his preview is called, we're going to do that as well. So we have a lot of stuff to, I don't know, be thankful about. And I'm just kind of feeling it. I'm feeling pretty good about what's going on. Thank you very much, Chris. Tune in again. Tell your friends. Evangelize what's going on. But I'll be back here tomorrow. Every day at 10 Central, I live stream. And we also live stream nightly shows like the Beast of the East, the Best of the West, and SEC After Dark that airs about 8:30 at night. So we got a bunch of stuff moving on. I do want to thank everybody for joining us. And like I said, evangelize it, like us, comment, retweet. If you see us, share it. And of course, word of mouth. So thank you very much for joining us. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Hotty toddy.